Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to be taking a deep dive into what's next for project management offices.
PMOs.
Yeah, exactly. PMOs.
Mm-hmm.
We're using this article from PM Connection. It's called Leading Your PMO into the Future. And I got to say, as I was reading through this thing, it gets pretty exciting, especially all this stuff about like AI and how data is changing how we work.
Yeah.
So the article kind of sets the scene by talking about these 7 key characteristics of what they call a future-ready PMO. I'm curious, like what jumped out at you when you were reading this?
Well, I think the thing that's kind of, fascinating is how intertwined all these characteristics are. They don't really exist in like isolation from each other. It's more like they kind of feed into each other and reinforce one another.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So like take technology, for instance.
Okay.
The article emphasizes AI, machine learning, automation. It's not just about like, replacing manual tasks. It's about using these technologies to achieve things that were kind of previously impossible.
Okay, so it's not just like automating reports, it's something more.
Exactly. So imagine, using AI to analyze like thousands of past projects to identify those factors that truly contribute to success. Or, think about using machine learning to predict project risks before they even happen.
Yeah.
It's almost like having like a crystal ball to guide your decisions.
That's wild. So, I mean, I can imagine that actually getting your hands on all that data could be a challenge in and of itself.
Yeah.
The article talks about like data-centric decision making. Is that even like realistic for most PMOs out there?
Well, I think it's a big shift, but it's definitely where the future is headed. And
Yeah.
I think the key is to like start small.
Right.
Begin by identifying, what data you already have access to.
Yeah.
And then figuring out, how you can use that data to make better decisions, even if it's as simple as tracking project timelines and budgets to kind of identify like patterns and areas for improvement. And then as you get more comfortable, you can start to incorporate more sophisticated data sources and analytical tools.
So it's kind of like building those data muscles over time.
Exactly.
So the article also mentions agility and flexibility. And, I feel like we hear these words a lot, but what do they actually mean for PMOs, like in practice? How does that actually play out?
Well, agility is all about like responding quickly to change.
Okay.
Right. So in a world where like markets shift constantly and customer needs evolve overnight, PMOs can't afford to be stuck in like, rigid waterfall methodologies.
Okay.
They need to be able to like, pivot, adapt, adjust their plans based on like real-time feedback.
Yeah.
Think of it like navigating like a winding river. You constantly need to be adjusting your course to kind of avoid obstacles and stay on track.
So it's more like whitewater rafting than like sailing on a calm sea.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that. So what might help PMOs kind of become more nimble like that? What are some things that they can do?
Well, that's where, agile frameworks like Scrum or Kanban come in, right? They provide a structured yet flexible approach to managing projects, breaking them down into smaller iterative cycles. And this allows PMOs to get like feedback early and often.
Okay.
And kind of course correct as needed.
Yeah.
So it's about embracing change as like a constant rather than something to be feared.
Yeah, that makes sense. This is all kind of pointing to a PMO that's like much more strategic than I think like we might traditionally think of.
Right.
Does the article talk about how that strategic alignment piece kind of fits in?
Absolutely. The PMO of the future isn't just about delivering projects like, on time and within budget. It's about ensuring that those projects directly contribute to the organization's strategic goals.
Yeah.
So that requires, strong portfolio management skills, the ability to kind of assess and prioritize projects based on their potential value and alignment with the overall business strategy.
So it's not just about like doing projects right. It's about doing the right projects.
Exactly.
Right, which makes a lot of sense. The article also mentions enhanced collaboration as a key characteristic. And, I feel like we hear about collaboration all the time.
Yeah.
But I always kind of wonder, like, what would truly enhanced collaboration actually look like for a PMO?
Right. Well, it's about breaking down those silos and fostering a culture of like transparency and shared ownership. Imagine a platform where project teams, stakeholders, and leadership can all access like real-time project information, communicate seamlessly, and work together to solve problems. And that transparency not only, improves efficiency, but it also builds trust and accountability.
Right. Yeah, and it brings us to that final characteristic, continuous learning and improvement.
Right.
To be honest, this is the one that makes me the most skeptical. How can organizations create a culture of continuous learning, especially when everyone's so busy already?
Hmm.
It feels like who has time for that?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge, but it's essential for future-ready PMOs.
Yeah.
And it's about creating a mindset where every project, every, success, every failure is an opportunity to learn and grow. And so that could involve, setting aside time for regular retrospectives,
Okay.
using AI to analyze past project data to identify patterns and areas for improvement,
Yeah.
or even just, simply encouraging teams to share their learnings with each other.
Okay. So I'm starting to get a clearer picture in my head of what these characteristics look like in practice.
Yeah.
It's definitely a lot to take in, but it's really interesting.
It is, yeah. But I think what's interesting is that, the article doesn't just kind of, lay out these characteristics.
Right.
It actually offers a roadmap for how organizations can actually achieve this transformation.
So it's not just pie in the sky ideas. There are tangible steps that organizations can take.
Exactly.
That's where it's really interesting for me.
Yeah, so it outlines, 7 practical steps that organizations can take to kind of make this vision a reality. And the first step, and this is perhaps the most crucial, is to conduct a really comprehensive assessment of the PMO's current state. It's about taking a good hard look in the mirror and really identifying strengths, weaknesses, and areas for growth.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. But I imagine a lot of organizations probably struggle to honestly assess their weaknesses. How can they overcome that?
You're absolutely right. I think it requires a culture of openness and a willingness to kind of embrace constructive criticism.
Yeah.
And organizations can, use tools like SWOT analyses or, maturity models to get a more objective view. And sometimes, even bringing in an external consultant can help to provide that unbiased perspective.
Yeah. It's kind of like having a personal trainer for your PMO.
Exactly.
Someone to kind of push you and help you see those blind spots. What's the next step once you kind of have a clear understanding of where you stand?
Well, then it's about defining the destination. Organizations need to create a clear and compelling vision of what they want their future PMO to look like. And that should include, specific goals like improving strategic alignment, integrating new technologies, or, enhancing collaboration.
So it's not just like a vague notion of being more data driven. It's about setting concrete goals.
Mm-hmm.
What comes after you have that vision in place?
Well, the third step is all about making that vision a reality.
Okay.
It's about turning it into a concrete plan. And so organizations need to develop a detailed roadmap that outlines, the specific steps, milestones, resources required to achieve those goals.
Yeah, this is where the rubber meets the road.
Right.
I think a lot of companies are really good at having big ideas, but then they struggle with that execution piece.
Yeah.
How can they make sure that they actually follow through on this plan?
Well, I think it's about breaking down that transformation into smaller, more manageable chunks. So, prioritize quick wins that demonstrate progress and kind of build momentum.
Okay.
Regularly track progress against those, defined milestones, and then be willing to adjust the plan, as needed.
Right. Yeah. So speaking of actually putting plans into action,
Yeah.
how does technology kind of fit into this whole transformation?
Yeah, well, that's step 4, embracing the power of AI and data analytics. It's about investing in and integrating tools that provide real-time project tracking, predictive insights, and automation.
Okay.
And that could include, anything from project management software with, advanced analytics capabilities to AI-powered risk assessment tools.
Right. So it sounds like a PMO's tech stack could get pretty complex. How do you even begin to choose the right tools? Where do you even start?
Well, I think you start by identifying your biggest pain points.
Yeah.
What are the areas where technology could make the biggest impact?
Okay.
Right. And then do your research. Talk to other PMOs, attend industry events, explore different vendor options. And remember, technology should be an enabler, not an obstacle.
Right. Yeah, it shouldn't create more problems than it solves.
Mm-hmm.
So this all sounds very high tech, but what about the people involved? Do you need a team of data scientists to make all this work?
Well, that brings us to step 5, investing in your team. The most sophisticated technology is useless if your people don't know how to use it. So organizations need to equip their workforce with the skills to thrive in this new environment.
Yeah.
Right. And that means, providing training programs focused on AI literacy, agile methodologies, data analysis.
Right. It's about empowering your existing team to kind of step into these new roles and responsibilities.
Exactly.
The article also highlights a strategic collaboration, but we kind of already talked about that as a characteristic. What's different about this step?
Yeah, you're right. We did touch on that earlier, but this step is about kind of taking collaboration to the next level, really embedding it into the fabric of the PMO.
Huh?
Right. And so this means, fostering open communication channels between project teams, stakeholders, and leadership.
Yeah.
Right. It also means, using digital tools to facilitate that collaboration, ensuring that everyone has access to the same information and can work together seamlessly.
So it's about making collaboration like a core value, not just a nice to have.
Exactly.
This all sounds great, but I can imagine things kind of going off track, especially with such a big transformation. How do organizations make sure that they stay on course?
That's where the final step comes in, monitoring progress and adapting.
Okay.
So organizations need to establish clear key performance indicators, KPIs, that track the PMO's progress toward its goals.
Okay.
Right. And they should also use, real-time dashboards to visualize data and identify areas where adjustments might be needed.
Right. So it's about being data-driven, even when managing the transformation itself. I like that. Are there any examples of organizations that have actually successfully implemented these steps and kind of achieved that future-ready PMO state?
Oh, yeah. There are actually a number of organizations across, various industries that are really paving the way. There's this global tech company that successfully implemented an AI-powered project risk management system.
Okay.
And it resulted in, a significant reduction in project delays and cost overruns. And they achieved this by feeding the system historical data from thousands of past projects and training it to identify those patterns and red flags that human analysts might miss.
Wow. That's a pretty powerful example of what's possible.
Yeah.
So it sounds like these future-ready PMOs aren't just a futuristic concept anymore. They're starting to become a reality.
Yeah.
But let's be realistic. I think there are going to be challenges along the way.
Yeah, for sure.
Are there any potential downsides or pitfalls that organizations should be aware of as they embark on this transformation?
Yeah, that's a great point. While the potential benefits are significant, there are definitely some important considerations. One thing to keep in mind is the risk of over-reliance on technology.
Okay.
Right. We can't forget that technology is a tool,
right,
and it's only as effective as the people using it. So, organizations need to strike a balance between human expertise and technological capabilities. For example, while AI can analyze massive amounts of data to predict risks, it's still crucial to have experienced project managers who can interpret those insights, consider the nuances of the specific project, and ultimately make informed decisions.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in the allure of shiny new tools, but ultimately it's about people using those tools effectively. What other challenges should organizations be watching out for?
Another potential pitfall is data security and privacy. Okay. As PMOs become more data-driven, they're handling increasingly sensitive information.
Right.
So, organizations need to ensure that they have robust systems in place to protect this data.
Yeah.
Right. And that includes complying with, relevant regulations, implementing strong cybersecurity measures, and training their teams on data security best practices. A data breach could be devastating for an organization's reputation and could even have legal ramifications.
Yeah, data breaches are a nightmare. So that's definitely something to consider very carefully. Any other potential downsides that we should keep in mind?
I think one more critical aspect is change management. Mm-hmm. Transforming the PMO will require, significant changes to processes, roles, and even organizational culture. So organizations need to carefully manage that change process to minimize, disruption and resistance. And that involves, communicating effectively with stakeholders, addressing concerns, and providing the necessary training and support to help employees adapt to the new ways of working. People naturally resist change, so it's important to bring everyone along on that journey and make them feel valued and equipped for those, changes ahead.
So even with these potential challenges, it sounds like you're overall pretty optimistic about the future of PMOs.
I am. I believe that PMOs have a crucial role to play in helping organizations navigate, the complexities of the modern business world.
Yeah.
And by embracing, the characteristics and the steps that we've discussed today, they can become true strategic partners and drivers of success. So it's an exciting time to be involved in project management, and I'm confident that the PMOs of the future will play a pivotal role in shaping the success of organizations worldwide.
So this deep dive has been packed with information about the characteristics and the steps to create a future-ready PMO.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up, I want to pose one final question to you, our expert.
Okay.
If you could give our listeners just one piece of advice to take away from this whole conversation, what would it be?
If I had to choose just one piece of advice, it would be this. Don't be afraid to challenge the status quo.
I love that.
The PMO of the future is not about simply doing things the way they've always been done.
Right.
It's about being bold, innovative, and constantly seeking, ways to improve.
Yeah.
So embrace the changes that are coming, experiment with new ideas, and never stop learning.
I love that. Don't be afraid to challenge the status quo. It's a reminder that we all have the power to kind of shape the future of our work and our organizations. Now, listener, whether you're a seasoned project manager or just starting out in your career, consider this your call to action.
Yeah.
How can you be a part of shaping the PMO of the future? What skills can you develop? What opportunities can you seize? This deep dive has given you a glimpse into what's possible. Now it's up to you to explore further, push boundaries, and make your mark on this dynamic field. Thanks for joining us.